months ago, Hillary Clinton, in talking about her emails, claimed that you said, and I quote, that my answers were truthful. Did you say that she was telling the truth with respect to her email claims?
I did not. I'd never say that about anybody. Our business is never to decide whether we believe someone. Our business is always to decide what evidence do we have that would convince us not to believe that person. It's an odd way to look at the world, but it's how investigators look at the world.
It's a really odd way. We'll get into that in a second. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. I'm Bill Tucker, filling in for Steve today. Joining me now, Sidney Powell, former DOJ official, former assistant U.S. attorney, chief of the appellate section in Texas, and author of the book License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice. Sidney, I'm glad I have somebody I can talk to about this. Since when is it not the business of an investigative arm to decide whether somebody is telling the truth or not? I thought that was kind of central to what they had to do.
It is a newsflash to me, Bill, because there's several federal offenses that arise out of failing to tell the truth, like 18 United States Code Section 1001, false statement to any federal officer, basically, and obstruction of justice issues. All kinds of things are raised when a person lies to a federal agent or agency.
And that soundbite we just heard was from the man who runs the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I am not a lawyer, nor am I a judge, but in my time as a reporter, I have covered quite a few legal proceedings and cases. And I always thought it was the job of the investigative arm to hand the material over to the prosecutor and say, here's what we've got. You decide what to do, what you're going to do with it. And that didn't happen either.
That is usually the way it works, unless the United States attorney starts the investigation him or herself and tells the FBI agents what to go look for and convenes a grand jury like a normal serious investigation would have. People would have been subpoenaed in front of the grand jury, not all these little kind of off-the-record interviews in polite circumstances without any warning of rights. This was not what I would call a real investigation in any way, shape, or form. This was fluff.
Yeah, it's strange. And without getting into speculating about why it was fluff, let's just both agree that it's fluff, and it's fluff empirically so. You don't have to have a political belief to think that. What is disturbing about this whole thing, and a lot of people wrote about this last week, is that every key person in this investigation was given immunity. I want to hear from you why that's an unusual tactic to go.
That is very startling, because in a normal investigation what they would do is file indictments against some of the lower level people and make them plead guilty to something, and then work a plea deal with them that included their testifying. Immunity was given out here like party favors.
Yeah, it was really strange, and it reduces the incentive for, well, why? Once you've been given immunity, I think the thought was, well, we'll talk. That's really not generally how it works, is it?
No, it's not how it works, and people have to make extensive and detailed proffers of what they would testify to before immunity is usually granted. And that would have to be, very incriminating testimony about a higher up.
It's interesting because the details of those plea agreements, immunity agreements, have not been released, and they don't seem to be inclined to release them. That seems odd as well.
Well, it's not so unusual to have the details of the agreement not released as it is to make that kind of agreement with these people to begin with, and then to allow Cheryl Mills in the room while Hillary Clinton is chatting with the agents when Cheryl is one of the parties that probably should have been indicted.
Oh, she has immunity.
Right.
Well, the other thing that was weird is that all of the, was it four? I think it was four of the aides who were, or may have been three, who were interviewed by the FBI, all had the same lawyer.
That's another startling irregularity.
Why has nothing been made of this? This whole email scandal actually kind of puzzles me in that it really does seem like the Clinton campaign has been able to convince everybody just to sweep it under the rug and go look the other way.
Yeah, the mainstream media simply works for her side, as best I can tell.
Was this too complicated? This is a fascinating story. Is it just too complicated for reporters to handle, or what?
I think it goes too wide and too deep. I have said from more than a year ago when I wrote an article for the New York Observer called The Countless Crimes of Hillary Clinton, in which I called for a special prosecutor, that probably the president and high-ranking members of Congress and maybe even Mr. Comey himself and others emailed Hillary Clinton at that email address. And as long as it didn't say state.gov, they had to have known they were sending it to a personal email account. So a lot of people had to know that she had her own server and her own private email address long before the news came out in the New York Times.
Well, President Obama kept saying, I had no idea, I didn't know, gee, this is news to me, holy cow, I had no idea. And then we find out in the latest batch of emails, which were just uncovered, that he in fact had been emailing with her back and forth on those private servers under an assumed name.
Sure he had, and I'm sure so had Valerie Jarrett, and so had Chief White House Counsel. I would be willing to bet if we could ever get all the emails, it would be fascinating to see who all was emailing her at that address.
It's interesting to me, for those of you who don't know Cheryl Atkinson, she's a terrific reporter, and she is now independent, and over the weekend she published a list of facts. She calls it the no-spin facts and timeline about these emails and about Benghazi. We were just looking at some of these. These are really startling. In fact, I showed this to someone, and they were shocked that it was true. And again, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it.
No. I mean, the fact that they would go and take a hammer to their BlackBerries, I mean, most people don't do things like that. They knew that there were sensitive materials, information relating to the national defense, which is all the espionage statute requires, is information relating to the national defense. It doesn't have to be marked confidential. It doesn't have to be marked top secret or anything else, just information relating to the national defense. And if you move it, even to some other place, you have committed a federal offense.
Sidney, thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
You're welcome.
Not that it's been a pleasure or anything. My colleague J.D. Hayworth joins us next on Newsmax Prime. We're going to leave you tonight with a high note. Some of the biggest laughs the late-night comedy shows had to offer this weekend.
I mean, this man is clearly unfit to be commander-in-chief.
Wrong.
He is a bully.
Shut up.
He started the birther movement.
You did.
He says climate change is a hoax invented by China.
It's pronounced China.
Newsweek has discovered that back in 1998, Trump's company violated the embargo against Cuba, illegally spending $68,000 on a business trip for representatives of Trump hotels and casino resorts. No word yet on whether they were in Cuba to scout real estate or find a fresh supply of beauty contestants to fat shame.
Well, the first presidential debate is over, and it's official. We still have to choose between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. It's like choosing a phone right now. There's really only two options. We don't want the iPhone 7 because it feels like it's kind of being forced on us. Also, it's not necessarily an improvement. But we also don't want the Samsung Galaxy, which could explode at any minute.
On Wednesday, Bernie Sanders actually campaigned with Hillary for the first time since July, and at one point, he seemed to get distracted by something. Take a look at this.
Come together, knowing we are stronger together, to come up with specific policies in education, in health, and so much else.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. He has everyone's phone number.
Now let's bring out the candidates. First, she's been battling pneumonia, and we hope she's feeling better tonight. It's Secretary Hillary Clinton. It didn't even feel like I was watching a debate. It felt like I was watching a divorced couple fight for custody of a kid that hates them both. They sounded like Brad and Angelina, but if Brad Pitt only wanted to keep the white kids.
For the first time in its 34-year history, USA Today weighed in on the presidential race to say Donald Trump is unfit to be president. I guess USA Today thinks if Trump wins, there won't be a USA Tomorrow. And that's what they're saying.